Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask an awful lot of questions. You can also become a supporter of the show by going to thebittertruth.info. And we appreciate the support. We are what they call independent media. We don't take advertising, so I'm not going to talk to you about the new shaver or the gel that makes your armpits softer or whatever the fuck a lot of these guys do. So there's that. And as always, we appreciate the support. And you can just buy merch if you want to, or subscribe to the Patreon link, or make a one-time donation, or whatever you want to do. And it's all there. So if you're used to Patreon or PayPal or whatever, a lot of guys I know are doing the Rockfin thing, and I don't want to deal with Bitcoin. So just whatever you feel you want to do. As always, you can listen to the show for free on YouTube, Podcast Addict, iTunes, Spotify, doodah. All the usual suspects is where we're at. So just today, January 6th, I usually never say a date because I like the shows to be, as they say in the business, evergreen. But today is supposed to be a formality. It's just basically, hey, the ballots came in, and the Senate says, yeah, cool. And, the president's the president, and in a couple of weeks we have the inaugural, and pretty much nothing fucking changes because it's basically the same system with a different color. You're either a crunchy red or a chewy blue, and either way, you're a fucking chump, as Malcolm X said, if you are voting against your own interests and expecting a change. So let's talk about today, because today we had the chickens coming home to roost. That's a term that's kind of incendiary. I remember when Malcolm X said that when JFK got shot, and I don't think he meant it like, yay, JFK got shot, but he meant it kind of in a way like, we do this shit overseas all the time. And what we see today, what we are seeing today, is shit that we've been doing overseas all the time. So if you're surprised, and what blows my mind is, I never watch the mainstream media except for maybe half hour or so a week. I'll plug in a Fox, or I'll plug in a MSLSD, or, like Jimmy Dore or Richard Medhurst or somebody will run clips to make their point, and I'll watch those clips. But today I've been watching, since I got off work, about a couple of hours, and I was tuning in while I was at work and just, on the YouTube live streams of the protests. Here's a side question. If those people were Black Lives Matter protesters, how many people do you think would have actually got shot today? You fucking know too. So don't tell me. But they're a bunch of fucking white people, so they don't get shot. And if you've noticed with protesters, but they destroyed property. Yeah, they destroyed property and didn't get fucking shot. Usually that's the excuse. Well, they got shot because they set a car on fire. Okay, well, these motherfuckers went into the Capitol and destroyed shit that was like a couple of 100 years old in some cases. And fuck all. Anyway. But watching the mainstream media and watching them clutch their pearls, how could this happen? What brought us to this? Really? You don't know? The system brought us to this. I'll get to that in a minute. But anyone that's surprised by today and is going to, be mad at Trump, which I don't like him either. I think the guy's a fucking dipshit. And honestly, no one else would have handled it this badly. He's a fucking toddler. And if you listen to that Washington Post leaked call, it was an hour. I listened to the whole thing. And listening to him talk to actual attorneys and people who kind of know their shit was pretty hilarious, because I don't care what you think of the election being stolen or not. Kind of doesn't fucking matter. We're getting a Republican in the office anyway. If you didn't know that, then you need to listen to this show. I've been on 2.5 years, and I've got plenty of episodes to give you plenty of information with plenty of smarty pants people that aren't me rambling on my third whiskey and soda. I'm actually kind of impressed because I can hear myself in the monitor and I'm articulating pretty clearly for a guy who's on his third whiskey and soda. Hang on. And to steal that Dennis Leary joke, if you all can't drink anymore, that's too bad. It tastes really good. So anyway, anyone that is surprised by this should not be. We've been doing this crap overseas since at least the 1800s. Since 1948 alone, we have interfered in over 100 elections. Now, that doesn't count assassinations, executions, or coups. Shit we pulled in Bolivia over a year ago when they barely got their government back this year, and we'll see how long that lasts, because we don't like it when people take their shit back. We want to steal their shit and have their people work for 15 cents a day and no bathroom breaks. If you've seen Good Will Hunting, you know where I got that from. Syria, Libya, Honduras. In 2009, we had the president of Honduras, Manuel Zelaya, arrested. And this is Obama and Hillary, by the way. arrested in his pajamas in 2009 for the crime of, wait for it, raising the minimum wage. Can't have that. Chiquita Banana doesn't like that. God forbid you pay these people $4 a day instead of $2 a day. That's going to fuck with our corporate profits and our shareholders. So we had to arrest the president of Honduras. And for the last 10 years, they've enjoyed the highest murder per capita rate in the world. So who the fuck are we? Oh, our democracy. Get to that in a second, too. They called in the DC National Guard today. And what I want these people to feel, honestly, and I've been saying this for a while, I'm not unhappy this happened. I'm not surprised it happened. I'm not disgusted like some of my friends, because it was bound to happen. Whether the so-called left did it, whether it was a bunch of Antifa people, or whether it was these right-wing Proud Boy assholes who just came from their bake sale and went to go try to raid the Capitol building, knowing full well they were going to get fucking shot. And how many did? Nobody. And somebody opened fire and shot a woman in the chest. No retaliation from DC police. Good times. So, but I want these people to feel fear. This is what I want them to feel. I've been saying this for a long time. And this is what's been coming for a long time. And I'm not talking about pussy hats or Antifa or the one-time protests about whatever. And Black Lives Matter, I was actually excited about that this summer, thinking, oh, great. We have some real protests now. Maybe the conventions will be protested, but then they did it at Zoom because of COVID. So that kind of went out the window. And then Black Lives Matter started getting co-opted by the Democratic Party. And the Democrats and the Republicans do this. They either murder or defang movements. Go back to MLK or Fred Hampton or Malcolm X or pretty much anybody that's tried to do anything. We shoot them. But lately, last 20, 30 years, that's bad press and the optics are bad. So we defang them. So, for example, one of the Black Lives Matter leaders this last summer got a deal at the WB. Because I'm sure she's going to make some really edgy documentaries at the fucking WB, right? But hey, it's okay. It's cash. Good for her. Whatever. My point in all this, though, is I want these people to feel fear. I want them to feel like that bit that I read in Henry Kissinger's biography when I was leafing through it at Target. Don't buy it. But I was leafing through it at Target about 8-9 years ago. And there was a great passage in there around 1971, height of the Vietnam protests and everything else. And the DC Metro or the DC Transit system lined a bunch of buses, empty buses around the White House. And the National Guard was surrounding the White House because there was like 10,000 protesters outside, way more than today. And they wanted to, they were protesting and it looked like they were going to hop the fence. And Nixon is in the Oval Office freaking out and tells Henry Kissinger, Henry, they're coming to get us, Henry. If they hop the fence, they're going to get us. That's the fucking fear I want them to feel. Because Nixon, if you want to be on a joke that's not mine, I think Chris Hedges told this joke, was the last liberal president we had in this country. He was the last New Deal president we had in this country. And why? Well, he was afraid of a genuine left. Because every 3 to 6 weeks, Ralph Nader was at some Senate subcommittee hearing and getting on the big 3 networks when we only had 3 networks on the nightly news, talking about how we need OSHA, we need the EPA, we need, and not just him, but a real left in this country. We need Title IX. We need safety, shatterproof glass in cars. We need seat belts. It was just on and on and on and on. As a result, Nixon did pass that stuff. He passed the Cancer Act. He passed, the HMO Act, which, that's another hour I could do by myself on whether or not that was good or not, which mostly wasn't, but it was better than what we had. Kind of like the ACA. It was better than what we had, but it still fucking sucked. So, but I say all that to say that Nixon felt fear, and he felt fear from a genuine left, and he even felt fear for his own safety. What we saw today was no different than the fall of the Warsaw Pact nations in the late 80s, early 90s when communism fell and the Soviet Union went away, because it did go away. So all you Russiagators who keep saying communists, you're a fucking moron. There are no more communists. Even China is not communist. They're run by the Communist Party, where they're fucking capitalist dictatorship. And if you don't know the difference, then go get a history book. And so there's that. But anyway, I want these people to feel that fear that they felt today. I saw pictures of House reps or senators, whatever, I think it was in the House, ducking behind chairs and freaking out. Good. You've been fucking these people for 40 years. And like I said, I don't care if it's the left or if it's the right. They're going to come after you. Because I tell you right now, it wasn't right-wingers that put a severed pig's head on Nancy Pelosi's driveway and spray painted crap on her doors. It wasn't right-wingers that went after Mitch McConnell. It was people who have been fucked by this system for this past year and got one $1,200 check, most of them, if they didn't get any unemployment, and a lot didn't. There's a lot of rules to get unemployment. If you didn't file your taxes last year, oops, you're not going to get any, even though you've had a job and taxes come out of your check, all right? I just got a phone with a friend of mine earlier today who I'm not going to name because she's actually a good person. I'm just a little angry with her right now, but that's okay. She had the nerve to tell me that Medicare for all wasn't a great idea. And I said, why? Because my day job is kind of in this wheelhouse. She said, well, most people like the employer paid health care they get. And I said, yeah, and 50 million people just lost it on top of the 30 million people that were left out of ACA, which means 80 million people in this country now don't have health care. On top of the food banks running out of food, on top of evictions getting extended for a month. So by the end of January, people are going to be getting evicted. So we're going to have more of a homeless problem on top of the 600,000 homeless we already have in this country. And fuck mental services, we don't have health care. Half the people in the street aren't crazy. They're just out of work. The other half that have issues, whether it's drugs or they've just been so abused, they're out of their mind. Either way, we're not helping anybody. And, if you're some senator or congressman making six figures a year plus a really kick-ass health plan because the congressional clinic just got their budget doubled in this last aid bill, 30 million of which is going to go to Venezuela, for example, to plan another coup. Let's see what President Blue Jesus does to prevent another coup in Venezuela. Probably won't. And nobody's going to notice this time because it's not Donald Trump. And even then, when it was Donald Trump, I had so-called liberals telling me with a straight face, well, Venezuela's a dictatorship. Really? Really? Who told you that? MSLSD? CNN? Rachel Madcow? Who told you that? It's not true. And you didn't bother to look. My favorite response, too, is when people say, oh, I'll check the numbers. I'm going to check the numbers. No, you won't. Because I'll see you next week at the same fucking bar and you say the same fucking blathery ass shit and you will not have checked the numbers and then you're not going to like me. And this is why I'm not fun at parties, which is pretty much why I have a fucking show. So there's that. So the challenge in all of this, whether it's the Trumpers or BLM or whatever, I mean, those guys ignored Joe Biden's criminal record. He's a war criminal. He authored the crime bill. He authored the Patriot Act in 1994 around the same time as the crime bill. And it wasn't entertained because it was deemed too draconian. But the Patriot Act violates the 4th and 5th and 6th Amendments, which nobody questioned in 2001 after 9/11 because nobody wanted to look soft on terrorism, right? So flash forward this summer in Oregon, Homeland Security's got unmarked vans arresting people without reading them the Miranda rights. And everyone's like losing their mind. Oh my God, Trump's a dictator. Obama did that. W did some of that. And that's all kosher because of the Patriot Act. 4th and 5th and 6th Amendments completely violated. And nobody cared. And now they're paying attention because it's the Cheeto. No one questions the system. No one questions the diseased system that gave us this asshole at all. Black Lives Matter didn't question Joe Biden's record. I had more than a handful of black friends getting pissed at me, saying, how dare I talk about the black community? I'm white. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not going to get an abortion either, but I got a fucking opinion on that. Number one. Number two, do you know what the crime bill is? That's irrelevant. Okay, you don't know what the crime bill is. That's irrelevant. You're just gaslighting me. I'm not gaslighting you. I'd be gaslighting you if I wrote the crime bill and said it was whiz bang awesome. I'm not. What is the crime bill? And after several people calling me and leaving threatening messages on my phone, because this was, Facebook and shit, and a couple of people that I know here in Austin getting mad at me, saying that the Democratic Party represents my interests. Really? The crime bill, the Patriot Act, deregulating the banks, deregulating communications so that only 5 corporations own everything? That's your best interest? No. The Democrats became Republicans and the Republicans became insane. And you're too stupid to fucking see it because you're only concerned with identity politics. Gays, guns, and abortion are the only differences between these two wings of one money party. They take money from everybody except the NRA. The NRA only really contributes to Republicans and a couple of Democrats. But for the most part, they all take money from big oil, big pharma, and all the rest. So that being said, we we don't question the system. W and Obama gave the gun to the baby. W and Obama gave Trump this setup. And then Trump's a fucking idiot. I'll get to that in a second of how we cough this moron up. But that's how fragile our system is, that a guy like Trump could actually get elected because an electorate was so desperately hurting and no one was listening. I mean, the U.S. we're so hypocritical. We preach all this crap. And as I said earlier, about all the crap we've been doing overseas, yet we talk about our democracy and our values. We're like that. We're like that pretentious virgin in high school who won't fuck you, but she'll give you a blowjob, but she's still a virgin. That's the United States. That's the United States foreign policy. It's just really frustrating. And then I'm watching these idiots cover this stuff, and I'm like, they're sitting there saying, not saying, but quoting Martin Luther King, a lot of great shit that he said about love and blah, 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 blah. But they always quote that shit. They don't quote the crap he was saying the last 2.5 years of his life before he got shot. They don't quote the last 2 or 3 years of his life where he was talking about racial justice is irrelevant if you don't have economic and social justice, right? And when you have 50% of people before the pandemic making under $30,000 a year, and 20 grand is poverty level, by the way. Let's not forget that. So you got 50% of people in this country before the pandemic making under 30 grand a year. And now we have people having lost their jobs with healthcare attached to their job. And I had this person that I was talking to on the phone today, made this point. A lot of people like their healthcare. Yeah. And then what happens when they don't have it anymore? Now they got no healthcare. And then she tried to tell me that was anecdotal. 50 million people on top of 30 million people is not anecdotal. 1 million people filing for bankruptcy for medical reasons who all had health insurance every year since the ACA was passed for the last 10 years is not anecdotal. The 45,000, 50,000 people a year we had dying every year for lack of coverage now last year was 70,000 people. I'm sure some of those were COVID. But still, why don't we have Medicare in this country? Every industrialized country in the world has it. What is your problem with it? Those of you that say we don't need it, either A, have never been sick and cashed in on your insurance and found out what they will deny and accept, which accounts for the million bankruptcies, right? And listen, man, my day job, I work in employee benefits. I see this shit every year, every month, in every company I work with. I don't deal with a healthcare plan. I deal with another service entirely, but I'm in that world. I see it all the time. In November, I was up at a company and I was telling this person the same thing today on the phone. They had to change plans after 20 years because after 5 years straight of 28 to 30% increases every year, the company picking up the first year of increases to be cool about it, but then they couldn't afford to do it anymore. They finally had to change plans. Otherwise, the employees were going to get hit with a $4,000 a year increase in their premiums. And this guy's like, I couldn't do it. And I'm the CEO. Guess what? I got to change my doctor too. So much for freedom of choice, because when you change plans, now you're in another network. And if your doctor's not in the network, good luck paying that bill yourself. You're not going to do it. You'll bite the bullet and take the insurance and just go do it and hopefully get a decent doctor that you like, the same guy you've liked for 10 years. That's life. So don't give me this CIA talking point bullshit that it's freedom of choice. And, I like my employer pay plan, and I got friends that lie about their income to get on ACA. And those idiots will rave about ACA too, till you get sick. And none of them have been sick on ACA. But I've got several other friends who have been ill and had their insurance deny them pre-approved expenses that were pre-approved before they went in for the procedure. Anywhere from $50,000 to $300,000 were denied per incident. That's why people go bankrupt. If you're looking at Obamacare, it's a $7,000 to $8,000 deductible. Sure, they'll cover your meds and cover a physical. Yay. And if you're lying about your income and paying $4 a month or $80 a month, yay. But if you don't lie about your income and you're my age, you're looking at $700 a month to get Obamacare. It's a lot of money to pay $8,000 deductible if I get sick. If I'm sick 20 months, if I'm 20 months worth of sick on Obamacare, that's $30,000 of deductibles. Not to mention the copays, not to mention what they deny, because that happens all the time. So I don't know, man. Today, what we've seen, and I know I kind of went tangential a little bit, but I want you to get an idea of where we're at, because this system is not your friend. This system does not like you. In fact, this system, our government, is owned by corporate oligarchs. And you notice in the news, they only say, oligarchs when it's China or Russia. They never say American oligarchs. But I'm sorry, Raytheon, Halliburton, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, the car companies, oligarchs. They put money into the Congress. They get bailed out first. What the top 100 richest people in this country during the pandemic, their wealth went up by $1 trillion. And why is that? Could have been part of that $5 trillion of money we gave to everybody else while the average American got $1,200. And if they got PPP, if they got unemployment, that was all that was there for them. Meanwhile, every industrialized country in the world is paying anywhere from a $2,000 to $7,000 a month UBI and or covering payroll. The EU, the Nordic countries, Japan is covering 100% of payroll with companies under 500 people and 80% of payroll with companies over 500 people. So Toyota is getting 80% of their payroll met. And guess what Japan's not doing? Bailing Toyota out. Guess what Germany's not doing? Bailing Mercedes out. What are we doing? We gave $50 billion to the airlines in the spring. And you got to promise not to lay off anybody. We don't put that in the act. That's a handshake. Okay, that's like the McDonald's deal with Ray Kroc. Here's $1 million. What about our royalty? Yeah, it's a handshake. Those guys never got their royalty. Watch that movie or read the book. But all that to say that now here we are. And our country, what are we doing? The airlines got $50 billion and they laid off 90,000 people over the summer. And now this new bill came up and they want $17 billion. We just gave you $50 billion that you totally pissed away on. And they can't do cash. They can't do stock buybacks for 2 years. Didn't seem to matter. They paid internal bonuses, whatever the fuck they did. They sure didn't keep those people working. And we wonder why this happened. Doesn't matter if it's a right-wing thing or a left-wing thing. And in 2 years at the midterms, after President Harris has been running things for about a year or two, because you watch Joe Biden's going to be drooling into a rubber diaper by summer, and that's by design. Excuse me. Today I watched him give some remarks. Excuse me, I'm taking another sip of this. Today I watched him give some remarks, and it seemed like his Adderall and his nap kicked in. Good times. But so what? He's the guy who was an architect or signed off on pretty much all of our problems for the last 47 years. He's been on the wrong side of everything, but everybody ignored it because he wasn't Donald Trump. And I don't like Trump either, but I also don't like the system that created him. And both sides act like these people are rock stars, like they're your spirit animal or something. And if you say anything, it's like I pissed on the carcass of a dead unicorn or I punched your fucking teddy bear. Y'all got to grow the fuck up, man. AOC getting coddled and protected by people that love her. She just voted for Pelosi for speaker again, her and the entire fraud squad and Jamal Bowman and goddamn Cori Bush, freshmen who were sworn in. And on day one of their new job, they voted for Pelosi as speaker. Fucking war criminal, covered for Bush and Cheney, covered for the CIA, will not give you Medicare for all, will not give you a UBI, give a fuck about you. But they call her Mama Bear. Couldn't wait to get on the cover of Vanity Fair and Rolling Stone with that bitch. Incredible. Fucking incredible. And people, oh, don't say I don't like her. I'm sorry. I got a buddy of mine who, that's how we met. One of the first friends I made here in Austin. Bar by my house, him and his girlfriend were hanging out. And we started talking about Cuba and comic books. Because I've been to Cuba and I like comic books. And so we became buddies. And he's one of the few people in town that I talk about this stuff with candidly. Most people I don't, because most people don't want to know. They just want to be confirmed, like the 2 minutes of hate in 1984. You scream at the screen for 2 minutes. I hate that guy. I hate that guy. If you haven't read Hate Inc. by Matt Taibbi, I highly recommend it. He makes this point in an amazing way. And the cover is Sean Hannity on one side and Rachel Maddow on the other. And basically his point of the book, the thesis of the book, is how we took journalism, which was always trying to be controlled by capitalist oligarchs like William Randolph Hearst and people like that, and finally perfected it to a science after the Communications Act got passed, and how now we have silo journalism. So you're never going to have Rachel Maddow or Sean Hannity bring on an anti-war commentator, right? They're not going to ever have that guy debate a general on why we should not go into Libya or why we don't need to go in Iraq, right? They're full-throated support of the war, and that's what they do. And so we scream at our screen for 2 minutes because I don't like Trump or I don't like Obama or I don't like Biden. And we want people to confirm that emotion. We want people to agree with us and confirm that emotion. We have a society now of a couple of generations. People say these kids today, I'm 57 years old. People my age in their 50s are fucking toddlers. They are children. They want to be agreed with. They don't want to discuss. Fuck history, fuck nuance, fuck what went before. That's in the past. It doesn't matter now. Well, that's why you're a goddamn idiot, because it does matter now. But because you're a goddamn 12-year-old and it's more important for you to suck your thumb and get lulled to sleep by the sounds of your goo goo gaga television shit, and you don't want to read even an article online is too much for people. Anything past 2 minutes, you lose the eyeballs. If it's a 2-minute read, that's why they tell you in the beginning how many minutes it's going to be so you can plan for it. No one reads books anymore. And even with Audible, which I've been doing for like 5-6 years now, most of the time, because I'm busy. But crap, I go through 2-3 books a month because I'm able to. Because while I'm driving, while I'm working out, while I'm at the grocery store, I can listen to the book. And if I got some issue, because some people, I don't like that, I want to take notes. I stop, I pause, I text myself notes so that I have the note. Right? And then I put them down and write them down and blather on about this shit like I'm doing with you all right now. But I've never not read. And it seems to be a lost art, and people get really angry and pissy when you tell them to read. No one, it's just frustrating. I mean, like I said earlier, no one's these COVID, whether it's COVIDiots or the Proud Boys or these pussy hat morons, no one's marching for their own best interest, right? I don't like Trump. Pussy hats. I love Trump. Election was stolen. Proud Boys. And where do they get that from? 6 weeks ago, Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, or if you don't know who he is, flat out said that the Russians interfered in this election. Gee, where would he have the basis for that kind of support? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because the so-called Democrats and the so-called left in the mainstream liberal media and a bunch of assholes on YouTube too, who are just jonesing for an MSNBC contract. They're just like TYT. I swear to God, quick side note, about 4 years ago, when I was getting more surprised because I was listening to TYT go, oh, that's weird. They're getting all Russiagate-y all of a sudden. And, they weren't really all about that in the beginning. And then they started jumping on board with that shit. And then they started supporting Hillary Clinton. And I was like, that's weird. You would think they would talk more like a Jimmy Dore or like a Lee Camp or somebody. And no, they weren't. And so I was talking to my brother and I go, dude, I don't know what the fuck is up with TYT. Every time I tune into those guys, it's just like listening to MSNBC. And he goes, oh, dude, the Turks are dead, man. The Turks are dead. Exactly how he said it without missing a beat. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, dude, 6 months ago, they took like $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg. He's like a top Clinton donor. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Look it up. Sure enough, they took $20 million from Katzenberg and an assorted bunch of donor people. And they were all Clinton contributors. And isn't it interesting that TYT is now full-throated DNC, Biden, all that shit. They're just basically a bunch of MSNBC wannabes. And they don't need the money because they're like the biggest news network on YouTube, the gazillion views, and they don't get demonetized. Guarantee you that. I guarantee you they don't get demonetized. Not one of their videos gets demonetized because they are in support of the empire. They are in support of the system. So, excuse me. The point I was making a second ago was how people never, march in their own interests. I touched on this earlier, and I'll start wrapping up here in a second. But whether it's the Pussy Hats or the Proud Boys or Antifa, they're not out there fighting for UBI or Medicare for all or to end the wars. They're fighting for like their one thing. The Proud Boys, we like Trump. Antifa, we're not fascists. And both, I swear to God, I can't prove this just yet, but neither could Stokely Carmichael or Huey Newton prove this right away. But in the late 70s, the Freedom of Information Act released some FBI memos that showed that those guys weren't crazy, that the FBI were indeed planting guns and drugs in the Oakland area to further decimate the black population of Oakland. So there's that. So I'm going to step out on a limb and say that 5 years from now, I may be proven right. When you see a Freedom of Information Act on Antifa or the Proud Boys, and you'll see that it was a bunch of just naive, dipshit, gravy seal goons led by a few sinister government agent guys. If you think that's impossible, It's not impossible. Malcolm X had his organization infiltrated by NYPD and FBI. That's a fact. So if it can happen to Malcolm X, and he was a smart guy, probably one of the smartest intellectuals this country's ever had. Him and James Baldwin. And yeah, they were infiltrated. He was infiltrated. So if he was infiltrated and Martin Luther King was assassinated, probably because for a year he had no FBI bodyguards. I mean, all kinds of things can happen. So don't put it past anybody. Quit saying it can't happen in this country. Quit clutching your pearls. Quit being like Jews in Munich in 1935 saying it can't happen here. We have the opera. We have Beethoven. We have art. We're sophisticated. We're one of the most amazing European countries. Yeah, by 1938, yeah, getting out in 35 would have been a good idea. Don't ever say it can't happen here, because it can happen here. And for anybody that wants to give me shit, because I've been bashing Kamala Harris a little bit lately, so I've been getting some crap. The night she got announced for the VP pick, and it's like, oh, it's made history. She's a black woman. I'm like, yeah, she's a black Nazi cop. So I'm being negative, whatever. Don't get excited, man. Jews worked for Hitler. Okay. So quit telling me this identity politics crap. To quote a joke from Jimmy Dore, it's like, hanging the rainbow flag on the Raytheon building, right? Or you want to be excited about that? Gee whiz, we have a black Secretary of Defense. Good times. He is an ex-board member of Raytheon, which he just resigned because he knew he was going to be appointed to defense secretary. And he's a former general, which since 1948, that's not been kosher. And we've not ever appointed a general as Secretary of State since General Marshall. And even then you had to get a waiver for that. And Marshall was no joke. I mean, the Marshall Plan and all of that, we can talk about that in terms of, good and bad, but it did a lot more. It did a lot of good. But it's always been a civilian. And Mattis was the most recent one since General Marshall. We had to get a waiver for that. Now we got to get a waiver for this guy. So you're going to tell me that a guy who's dialed into the Pentagon was in the Iraq War as a commander, right? And a board member at Raytheon, no one's blinking. When Mark Esper was a former board member of Raytheon, everyone lost their shit. Oh my God, he's a Raytheon board member, the guy that replaced Mattis. And you're like, okay, yeah, I agree. That sucks. Not a good idea. But where are you on this Austin guy? Crickets. It's the same bullshit. When your side does it, it's okay. When their side does it, it's not okay. And at the end of the day, I mean, Jesus Christ, Trump is an idiot man-child who's a victim of trust funds and inbreeding. He's the orange hairball coughed up by the cat that is a dying empire. I just made that up because I've had 3 whiskeys and sodas. So there you go. Folks, I'm going to start wrapping this up. I hope you got some perspective on the day, that this wasn't just sudden. It wasn't just the last 4 years. We weren't hunky-dory and everything was great before January 2017. We've got a lot of problems in this country, and they're not going to go away by just voting. Unfortunately, what you saw today is probably the beginnings of a civil war and not the beginnings of a revolt. And I would like to see a revolt. And I want to see more fear on the faces of these motherfuckers, because these are the people that are creating the pain and then acting like, oh, gee, I don't get it. And if you're one of those people, I'll start with the simple part first. A lot of right-wingers say this shit to me all the time. Fuck those people. They should pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, which, by the way, that's a stupid phrase. Or I shouldn't say it's a stupid phrase. It's used wrong. In the early 1900s, that phrase was part of a bunch of colloquialisms, kind of like when pigs fly. You can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps if you've ever tried. I put my sneakers on today to go work out, and I grab the sides and try to pull myself up. I didn't lift off the ground. I didn't levitate. I just was on the ground pulling on my sneakers like a crazy person. That's what that phrase means. So for the conservatives who say that, or their filter is fuck those people, I say fuck you. Get a heart before it's cut out of your chest and held in front of you so you can watch it beat its last as you die. That's the simple part first. To the liberal, the so-called left, or the chewy blues, as I like to call them, because they're a bunch of corporate fucking assholes who say things like, well, I got it. I got my insurance. I'm cool. Kind of an indirect way of saying fuck you. Or, wow, yeah, I'm lucky. I'm cashing out my 401k. So hopefully I'll find another job soon. Okay, a lot of people don't have a 401k. Before the pandemic, 50% of Americans are making under $30,000 a year. Some with families, a lot of with families. 20 grand is poverty in this country, right? And yet we have the temerity and the nerve to say to these people, too bad, we don't care. See, we're Rome. We got 1 million troops. Rome had 1 million troops. Couldn't afford to pay them either. We can because we print our own money. Rome really couldn't print their own money. But we have troops in 149 countries, 1,200 bases. We have an oligarchy sucking the marrow out of the treasury, or as Martin Luther King said, it's socialism for them and rugged capitalism for the rest of us, or rugged individualism for the rest of us. That's the thing that they won't say on the news, that Martin Luther King said that. During the last bailout package, I didn't see that quote show up in the news not one time. Socialism for the rich, rugged individualism for the rest of us. I didn't see one mainstream news person say that. No, they wait till today because MLK Day is next week, and we're gonna do the same shit we do every year. I did a show last year on this very subject. If you haven't heard it, just look it up on YouTube. You know, we treat Martin Luther King like Santa Claus, and every day same shit happens. You know, they play the "I Have a Dream" speech, and everyone feels a little guilty, and then, you know, brushes the tears away, and they go, "Oh yeah, well, we've made progress." Have we? Have we really? We've got cops starring in their own snuff films on a regular basis. And the people of the United States just, you know, get into partisan debates over human beings being murdered in the street. Again, the fucking Proud Boys just raided the Capitol today. How many were shot by cops? And as I'm, you know, doing this show right now, you know, supposedly everything's on lockdown. It's all good. It's all clear. By the time I get back to watching this shit, it's probably not going to be all clear. Or by the weekend, something else is going to happen. Or by Inauguration Day, something's going to happen. I mean, who knows? But right now, on 5:40 Central Time, United States of America, Austin, Texas, on January 6th, 2021, it's all on lockdown. But how many white guys got shot today? And they were at that shit for a lot of hours. It was like 5 or 6 hours. How many guys got shot today? Nobody. If that was BLM or a black-led protest of some kind, what do you think would happen? You know. You fucking know. On that note, you guys, thank you. Appreciate the support. Again, thebittertruth.info. Support the show. You can also visit patreon.com/thebittertruth if you want to become a subscriber. We got all kinds of fabulous swag there to make your life better. And as always, if this shit makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.